Hello class. Today I'm doing chapter 2 on supply and demand. So this supply and demand is a very fundamental concept in any economics classes that you will take. And basically it applies more to the microeconomic side, but of course the macroeconomic side as well. So we'll be using a lot of graphs, and if you like, you could use the kind of like follow along with the PowerPoint slides, and if you want to take notes, you're welcome to take out a piece of paper and draw the graph as I do it. Okay. Basically, what we're going to talk about is what we call a product market. Now, in the case of the product market, you will have a graph, and this is very common in economics that we do that. On your so-called y-axis or your vertical axis, you will have price in terms of dollars value. And then on your x-axis or your horizontal axis, you have quantity. Okay, and this would be quantity of the product if you're selling pizza, for example, or the quantity of a service, depending on what you are looking at. So, and let me also define what is market. And basically, when you talk about market, you say they will consist of two types of agents. Number one is the buyers, and number two is the sellers. So sometimes you see the term, consumers. That's the same thing. Consumers are like people like you and me. We go to Walmart, we buy stuff. So we are the consumers. And who are the producers? Producers are the one like Walmart is one of them. UNCP is the producers of education. So that's the same as sellers. So basically, as buyers or consumers, you look at demand. We say we demand this product. We are the one who consume something. So anytime you see a demand curve, so I'm going to draw it like that. And this is DD stands for demand curve. And we're going to say this is downward sloping. The demand curve is considered downward sloping because you're reading from left to right, as I may have mentioned at one time not long ago. So, and then if you look at supply side, it's the other way. So there's also some terms that I need to define. For example, trying to if you look at a demand curve, I think I'll just do the market supply and demand curve, and some of the basic concepts you could do it on your own, read on your own. So let's say that if the product is $1, you're buying something, and well, let's say a slice of pizza. Okay, the quantity here is I'm using example as pizza. If the slice of pizza costs only $1, and basically you say you would want to buy 30,000 units. I'm just using example, simple one, so you can follow. Let's just say use our number here. So 50. Okay, and if the price is high, you say $2. So in this case, this might be, say, 40. And then if it is even higher, say at $3. So you have 3 points here. And let's say this is 30. And then if it is $4, and let's say this is 20, and so on and so forth. So then you have point A, B, C, and D. So according to the so-called law of demand, it says that as price increases, quantity demanded comes down. So as you can see, from point A to B to C to D, as your price of a slice of pizza, in this example we're looking at, increase from $1 to $2 to $3 to $4, and then you could see that at each successive point you are demanding less and less unit. So that's law of demand. Basically, it says that there's a P here. It's price increases. P and quantity demanded, this is my short form, are inversely related. Or you could use the term negatively related. So because of that, because of this inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, we say that demand curve is downward slope. So again, this is a product market, and we use the term like quantity demanded. So let me just kind of like circle this. We use the term quantity demanded declines or decreases as price goes up. So if you really think about it, that makes sense. You know, if the price of pizza is at $4, you only invite 20 friends to your party. But then if the price dropped down to $1, then you know you feel like you could afford more, so you would buy more units, like 50 slices of pizza, and then you could even invite more friends or even your professor to your pizza party. So that's basically is the law of demand. The law of supply, on the other hand, is the opposite. And of course, there are theories. Before I get into supply, the law of supply here, there are a few theories that could help you to explain why the law of demand is the way it is. I'm trying to look at your diagram here. I don't see it here. Okay, just bear with me for a second. Okay, there it is. Now, there are a few theories that could explain what is the law of demand. For example, well, you could say three hypotheses. Number one is substitution effect. So according to this so-called substitution effect, so these are the three theories that we are going to use to explain why the law of demand is the way it is. So according to substitution effect, if the price of certain goods are higher, then you tend to stay away from that particular good. You will buy something that's cheaper. For example, like Pepsi and Coke. Some of you might be diehard Coke drinker, and some of you might prefer Pepsi over Coke. So basically, they are considered pretty good substitutes between Pepsi and Coke. So if the price of Coke goes up, then you basically say, oh, yeah, it's more expensive now. They're more or less the same. You know, I'll buy less of Coke and I'll buy more Pepsi. So you switch out. So that kind of explains the law of demand. The second one is the rebalance effect. So the rebalance effect basically is the same thing as what we call income effect. If you look at other textbooks, that's a term they would use. So what it is saying that, okay, so if the price is cheaper now for a certain good, let's just say the price of a Big Mac is now, you know, like $1.50 instead of $2.50. So it is cheaper now, and to some extent you feel richer. You feel like your purchasing power has gone up. So you're able to afford more now. So that's what we call rebalance effect. So it's got something to do with your buying power, your purchasing power. The last theory that we would look at is called the law of diminishing marginal utility. So according to this, right, if you consume more and more goods, right, for example, you are hungry. So you go to the vending machine and you're trying to buy a Snicker bar, chocolate bar. So, you know, the first one that you buy, you are very satisfied after you consume it because you satisfied your hunger. And let's just say you're still hungry. So then you buy the second unit. And then after you eat two, you're still hungry, you buy the third one, and then the fourth one, and then the fifth one. So, but each additional unit of the chocolate bar that you're consuming or you're buying and eating it, you know, you get less and less satisfaction out of each additional unit. So in other words, there is this so-called declining or diminishing marginal utility. So then this is what it says. So it explains why law of demand is the way it is, because if you buy more and more of it, basically if the price goes down, you feel like you could buy more, but if the price goes up, this law of diminishing marginal utility kicks in, and then you feel like, well, you don't want to consume as many, especially you have been consuming so much so far. Okay, next I want to move on and talk about the law of supply. So again, the law of supply is just the opposite. Now remember that when you look at the demand side of the market, you're looking at it from buyer's viewpoint. You're looking at it from the buyers or consumers' viewpoint, not from the producer's viewpoint. So the next thing I want to present is the opposite. So that's the supply side. So let's we're going to look at the same pizza market, but now I'm going to reverse the diagram a little bit. So in this case, we'll have supply curve that's upward sloping. So we denote it as SS. SS stands for supply curve, and that's from the viewpoint of a producer of pizza or a viewpoint of a seller of pizza. So in this case, you say, oh, if the pizza is $1, then I will make 20 pizza. Okay, so I'm trying to make use of this number we have here. So this is your point A. But if it is $2, then I'll make a little bit more, point B, 30. And if the price of pizza is higher, like $3, then I would make a little bit even more. So then this is point C. And then if it is $4, whoa, that's nice. So I'll make even more units of pizza. So as you can see, you have this point A, B, C, D. You could join it together. And it shows that the graph or the line for the supply curve is upward sloping. Now, the reason that it is upward sloping, we could say that that's because we could also apply the law of supply here. So I'm going to change this now. Let's use a different color. So here's the law of supply. Now, the law of supply say that as price goes up, your quantity supply actually will go up as well. I'm going to change the term now. Instead of quantity demanded, it's now quantity supply. Okay, so as price goes up from $1 to $2 to $3 to $4, you will sell more and more units. And why is that? Because you have more incentive. And the price it's getting higher and higher as a producer. If you're doing business, if you're a businessman, and there's a tendency for you to want to sell more goods, more units of the goods, the price goes up because why? You make more revenue, you make more sales. Okay, so the quantity supply would also go up in this case. Okay, so in other words, they move in the same direction now. So we say P and your price and quantity supply are positively related or directly related. So I don't know if you could see this color. This is kind of like faint, so I think, so then, so this is positively related. I'm going to see if I could get a darker color so you can see a little bit better. Nope. Alright. I think I'll use the brown color. Okay. So the law of supply say, let's repeat, as price goes up, quantity supply goes up as well. So in other words, the quantity and the price, they move in the same direction because you see that one up, the other one is up, and one down, the other one is down. And I should say, and vice versa. Vice versa means if price comes down, quantity supply comes down. So then you'll be moving from point D to C to B to A as price comes down and quantity supply goes the other way. So it's opposite. That's what vice versa means. So then your price and quantity supply using QSS as quantity supply are directly related, or what we call positively related. And then you won't have these three theories here because that apply to law of demand. So there it is, you have the graph here, and as you can see, in this case it's considered upward sloping. So that's your so-called law of supply. And so, and the way to explain it a while ago, I mentioned that, well, you know, if the price is higher, you have incentive to want to produce more. So another way that your textbook would explain, or principles or economic would explain, is what we call increasing marginal cost. And that's your MC, which you will later study as well. So this is some of the theory behind that explain why supply curve is upward sloping and why you have law of supply the way it is. And that's the one reason is because of the higher marginal cost as you produce more and more units. So, so as you produce more goods, right, and the marginal cost of producing that goods is higher, gets higher and higher. So, so for example, let me give this example. If there is somebody who hire you to pick up aluminum can for recycling after a big football game. So at the beginning, right after the game, right, if you were to go around the stadium trying to pick up all the used aluminum can, because people sometimes just, you know, after they drink the soda, they just chuck it on the ground, you know, instead of put it in the trash can. So if that's the case, you go around and pick them up, and then, you know, they might pay you a cent for each bottle, each can that you collect. Well, I mean, at the beginning it's easy because they're all there, you know, you could collect them. But after you have finished collecting them, maybe after the first 2 hours, and then you realize that there's none. You have collected all of them. You have picked up every single one of them. But if you want to earn more, like you want to get a little bit more, and you will have to go beyond the stadium, maybe going to the parking lot, look behind the bushes, and to find it. So it's harder to find now. So as you try to collect or make more and more of these units of this aluminum can that you will collect, it gets harder and harder. Your marginal cost of producing it gets higher and higher. It costs more now in terms of your time. So therefore you would expect, you know, they might pay you more, like 1.2 cents. I mean, I'm just giving example, 1.5 cents, you know, for those bottles as the quantity goes up, because the marginal cost of producing it gets higher and higher. Whereas the first few units, you know, you might get 1 cent per aluminum can. Okay, so that's basically explain law of supply is the way it is. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the shift. So remember, let's come back to this concept again. I used the term quantity supply, and earlier on I used the term quantity demanded. So these terms are kind of important, and I think I'll make a note up here to highlight it. So a lot of time when you read the book, it doesn't come up and jump up and tell you, but I'm going to tell you now that quantity demanded is not the same. Likewise, quantity supply is not the same as shift in demand, or in this case, shift in supply. Okay, that's what I'm going to get to next. So now notice that, but before that, let me point out something. So I use the term quantity supply. Now notice that we're only talking about one side of the market here. Here we're only talking about producer side of the market, you know, from producer's perspective. So you only see one side of the market, but then earlier when I presented that demand curve, you only saw the graph or the demand curve from the consumer's viewpoint. Do we have a market? The answer is no. Because, you know, basically you're talking to yourself. You haven't make a sales yet. There's no transaction that goes on yet. So you're just talking to yourself, okay, if the price goes up, you know, I would produce such and such unit. And then as a consumer of pizza or buyers of pizza, you do the same. Before you get out there, you're thinking, you know, okay, if the price is $1, I'll buy such and such unit. And if it's higher, then I'll buy less unit. So far you're not interacting with anybody. You're talking to yourself as a buyer. You're talking to yourself as a seller. So therefore, we use the term quantity supply. We use the term quantity demand. Okay, next we're going to talk about shift in demand and shift in supply curve. I'm going to erase all this, but please make a note of what I had up here. So which is what I'm going to demonstrate next. That your quantity demand is not the same as your shift in demand curve. Now, so what are some of the determinants of demand curve? So what are some of them? So let's take a look. So some of the determinants of demand, meaning like what are the factors that change your demand, you know, other than its own price? For example, we know that price is essential. Price is the number one thing that, well, at least in economics, you know, I mean, when you make a decision, if the price is higher, you buy less of a good. You know, these are like common goods. So there are other factors that affect your demand. So, and what are they? So let's look at them. So, for example, taste. Now, taste could be favorable or unfavorable, and then we want to look at income. And when it comes to income, we have two types. We have what we call a normal good, and then we have what's known as inferior good. Okay, I think we get to that, but so I'm going to go ahead and do our demand curve here. So once again, when I do the graph, you could do it with me on a piece of paper. So this is your price right here, and down here is your quantity. Okay, so I'm just going to represent your demand curve with just a line like that. So very simple, just D, capital D for demand curve. So then what we say is if the taste is favorable, so there are two types of taste, you know, like for example, I'm trying to think of a good example. Some of you may have watched the show Jurassic Park, you know, the dinosaurs movie. So remember, some of you may be younger, and when you were watching Jurassic Park, most of you watched more than once. Me too, you know. So now, after the movie, right, a lot of kids, you know, young kids, 6 years old and younger, they would tell their mom and dad, you know, oh, mom, you know, please buy me more toy dinosaurs. You know, when you go to Walmart, they want the collections of this dinosaur. So when the movie comes out, there is this trend towards that favor toy dinosaur. So in this case, we say that the demand curve for toy dinosaur will go up. It will shift to the right, like that. Now, in your textbook, I think it also shows the supply curve. So that's not so crucial. So the important thing is that I think I'm probably not going to include that because you will probably understand a little bit if I just look at the shift in demand curve. So in other words, this so-called shift in demand curve is, so if demand curve shift right, we say this is an increase in demand, and vice versa. So again, vice versa means if demand curve shift left, then this is known as a decrease in demand. Okay, increase in demand will shift the demand curve to the right. And as you can see, like we could give one example. For example, this is $5, and this unit here is 50. So that same price here, but you got 2 point A, point B. So this value is higher. This is 100. So that's what it means. You know, your demand increases. Demand curve shifted to the right. And that's different from what we call quantity demand that I think I'll get to it later, because this determinants of demand basically is factors that affect your demand curve to shift. It's everything that I'm going to list here except for its own price, because if it is its own price, like the price of pizza we talked about earlier, then you could see that that was a graph that I showed you earlier. Then it will move from one point of the graph to another point, but there's only one line. There's only one demand curve. Whereas here you have two demand curves. You're shifting to the right. So instead of D, you're at decline right there. Okay, so we say that if the taste goes up, demand curve will shift to the right. Okay, and so let's present all the cases that you will have everything that shift to the right, and then I'll move on to talk about things that shift to the left. So if you have normal good would be like common things that you consume that, like food is one of them, and gasoline probably. I'm trying to think of entertainment like movies. So if price of these goods goes up, you consume less of it. And that's assuming that all these things are normal good. So normal good is if your income goes up, you consume more of it. That's your normal good. Now inferior good is the opposite. If your income goes up, you consume less of it. Now some of you might consider fast food like McDonald's, Burger King as inferior good. So in that case, if your income goes up, you say goodbye McDonald's and goodbye, Burger King, and then you start going to Ruby Tuesday, Outback, what are some of the Olive Garden, all these nice dining places. So inferior good means if your income goes up, your consumption of the good goes down. So if that's the case, you say that your demand curve will shift to the left. Okay, I'm going to use a pink one to show that demand curve. I'm also using arrow to indicate. So this would be your D prime point. So at this right here, you have, say, 25. So that's your point C. So in order to make it clearer, I could use a different color there, but I think it doesn't matter. You probably got the point. I could use a red one. Yeah. Okay. So there. So again, one more time. If your income goes up, it's a normal good. You consume more of it. Demand curve shift to the right. And if it is inferior good, like ramen, R-A-M-E-N, this ramen dry noodles. A lot of my students eat those in the dormitory. So if your income goes up, you might want to collect all of them from your pantry and ship them out or give it to the goodwill. You start eating a little bit better. Okay, so that's the taste and income. And then we have other things like, let's see, what is some of the things. Okay, price of other goods. Now, the price of other goods, there are two types of goods that we are concerning with here. One is called complement goods. Now, this is not free good because that one's spelled I with an I. This complement spelled with an E there. So, what's a good example of complements? For example, cereal, milk and cereal. Most of us, when we consume cereal, we eat cereal, we eat it with milk, Although I know there's exceptions. Some people just eat it the way it is. So then they're considered complements. So if the price of, example, I'm going to write down the example here. Okay. So if the price of cereal goes up, so you consume less cereal, and, you might also consume less milk. So your demand for milk, in this case, would come down. So they move in the opposite direction. So you say that the demand curve for milk will shift to the right, and vice versa. Now substitutes, example of substitutes will be like Coke and Pepsi. So let's just say the price of Coke goes up. So it is more expensive, so you consume less Coke. And you will consume more, the substitute of it, in this case, which is your Pepsi. So your demand for Pepsi will go up. So in other words, in cases of this complementary goods, goods that you consume together, like for example, if you're wearing a shoe on your right foot, and then of course your left foot you wear a matching shoe, I hope, right? So you have to consume them together. Okay, so in other words, they move in the opposite direction in the case of complementary goods, but then I'm talking about price and demand move in the opposite direction. But in cases of substitute goods like pizza, Coke and Pepsi, the price and your demand will shift, will move in the same direction. So that's how you know. Okay, so again, when I say demand for Pepsi shift to the right, so it will be like that, to the right, or increases, and demand for milk shift to the left, it will be the other way. So I'm just giving you an example here without keep drawing the same graph over and over, because if you understand, the analysis here, the graphs are the same. Okay, and I think in your book, you also will have a supply curve. I mean, it doesn't matter. I think the important thing, I'm trying to do it separately, just the demand side, so you could see the graph a little bit better. But the concepts are the same. So next one is if you have a population of potential buyer, goes up. So potential buyers, so let's just say that the town is expanded. So some of you might live in Fayetteville area, North Carolina, and you heard about this project known as BRAC, B-R-A-C, and that's where they bring in all the military households and personnel into the area. So if that's the case, yeah, potential buyers would increase the market for everything. So they might open up an additional Walmarts. I think they already have 3 in Fayetteville, so you have the 4th or the 5th one. You might have more of them subscribing to cable TV, subscribing to internet access, utilities, waters, and all that. So if the population of potential buyers goes up, then demand could shift to the right. If for some reason there's a war going on somewhere and all the military people, big chunks of them are being deployed, then the potential population, potential buyers goes down, then demand curve will shift to the left. So there's always both sides of it. So you have to see which direction. So when you get a question like that, number one, usually you have to decide, are we talking about demand side or the supply side? Then the next question is this particular scenario I'm looking at will cause it to increase or decrease. If it is increase, then demand curve shift to the right. If it is decreasing, then it shift the opposite direction, which is to the left. Okay, I think we got 3 more here. Expected prices. So if your expected prices goes up, then you actually will buy more now. For example, I think a good example would be if you read in the newspaper, Apple computers, Apple Inc., company that's producing iPhone and Mac and all that. So they're doing very well. Every quarter they're earning profit. So if you read in the Wall Street Journal, they're doing well. So they're going to come up with a new model of computers, and that new model, they're going to drop the price, say by 25%, which is very substantial because you know how much it is to buy a Mac. So, and they say they're going to implement that next month. So if you know that the future price a month from now for the Mac is going to drop by 25%, what would you do as a consumer if you're already thinking about buying a Mac? So common sense would tell you that you would delay your purchase. Don't buy it now. So in fact, if you just bought one from Best Buy yesterday, you might be very tempted to return it, right? And please don't do that, but that's consumer mentality. If you find out that price is going to be cheaper next month, you don't buy it now. You wait till later. So then the analysis we look at here, the demand for Mac computer will shift to the left for the current period. So a lot of time we're looking at the current period when you do this demand analysis for the expected price. Okay, and the vice versa is true. Next is excise tax. And then we're going to explain it along with subsidy. Now, excise tax is going to be imposed on the consumer. Is that good? No, because tax means you have to pay more. If you pay more, there's less money for you to consume. So therefore, if there's a higher excise tax, so basically your demand for any good would shift to the left because it's less. Take home pay for you because you have to pay more tax, and therefore your demand for almost any good to shift to the left, decline, because the purchasing power is now lower. Okay, subsidies is the other way. So I'm going to put the sad face here. I'm going to put a happy face here because subsidies mean you receive something from your company. Maybe the company subsidize your travels, subsidize your gives you more benefit, health benefits, could be your retirement benefit, and the government could give you welfare, subsidize you with education, public education, subsidize you with health care, with Medicare and Medicaid, for example. So subsidies is good. So if it's good, it's putting money back into your pocket, so demand curve for almost anything will shift to the right, and vice versa. So I think I have explained everything already. So now everything has the opposite side of it. So far we're looking at all the increase of the taste, income, price, or other goods, population of potential buyers, expected price, excise tax, subsidies. All this, how does it affect the demand curve? So does it shift to the right or shift to the left? So I'm going to put, just to summarize very quickly, the one that shifting to the right, to the left, I'm going to mark it. Okay, this is the one that shift to the left. Okay, compliments is to the left. I think we got one more. Okay, excise tax is also to the left. So in other words, these are the one that cause the demand curve, demand to decrease instead of increase. Inferior good, demand for the good will decrease. Complementary goods, demand for the goods will decrease as well. So next thing we want to do is we want to move on to, to the determinants of supply. So that will be the opposite. So I'm going to erase this. Now this is the supply curve. It's upward sloping, and we know that if we shift to the right, that's called increase in supply. And if we shift to the left, we call decrease in supply. Okay, where's my pink one? So let's call this increase in supply. I'm trying to use a different color here, so let's erase it, do it again. Okay, shifting to the right, and shifting to the left means decrease in supply. So once again, you have remember to always label your diagram. So this is your price, here is your quantity, and if I draw a line across, I say this is $3. So then at the beginning, you would have, say, 50 units. And if the supply curve shift to the right, you have 150 units here. If you shift to the left, you might only have 25 units here. So again, if the supply curve, I'm changing this thing that I'm putting on earlier. If the supply curve shift right, it means increasing supply. If the supply curve shift left, it means decreasing supply. Okay, so that's how it is. And then we're going to look at some of the determinants of supply curve now. Now, I want you to pay attention that the determinants of supply curve and demand curve are very different. In fact, well, except for some of these are the same. Like, for example, the number of sellers. So I'm going to erase that because the last three are actually the same. Number of sellers. Okay, I'm just going to write them all down and then I'm going to explain it. I got three more. So I'm going to put technology here on the supply side, and then price of input or factors of production and price of other potential input or potential output. Okay. So again, as you could see, the last three are the same. So I could draw a line here, same as the determinants of demand curve. But the first four are different. We got about 7 determinants or factors here. So first, let's talk about the price of input. So that means the price of producing something, the raw materials or labors, for example. So let's just say it is now cheaper to hire labor, okay? Carpenters, plumbers, electricians when you build new houses. So if that's the case, then you say supplier of the housing market will want to construct more houses because it's cheaper to hire this labor, you know, electrician, plumbers, carpenters. Okay, so higher price of input would discourage, or a lower price of input, in this case labor, or it could be raw materials, bricks, woods, the stuff they use to construct houses, cement. So if price of production or price of input goes down, then you want to supply more. Supply curve will shift to the right. The vice versa means if the price of inputs are higher, cost more to hire these laborers, cost more to buy this raw material to construct new houses, and supply curve will shift to the left. Okay. Next, we want to talk about technology. So if the technology is improving, like for example, you know, you buying a tractor, compared with like 30, 40 years ago, the tractors you could buy today are very sophisticated. You could plow the land with it, you could harvest it, and you could do a lot of stuff, you know, with the implements that you add on to the tractors. So the better the technology, the more efficient the use of a machine, for example, it makes you more productive as a labor, as a worker. For example, computer has made everybody more productive today. iPhone, smartphone has made people more productive. You don't have to go to class anymore. You could take online classes from your cell phone, you know, so, or your computers. So it's more efficient now. So basically we say supply curve shift to the right, okay? In this case, we would say supply of education, you know, because you're able to have more classes with the technology today. Okay, or you could also say it's more efficient for you to hire a new tractor or harvesting equipment. So because of that, it's more efficient, you're more productive, so you're able to produce more. So that's the key, you're able to produce more. So supply curve will shift to the right. I don't think I want to explain technology going backwards, supply curve shift to the left, because we hope we're moving forward, right? So let's not look at the other way, because I don't want to think of the way that we actually move backward. Number of sellers, if there are more sellers out there, more farmers out there that who grow corn or sweet potatoes, so therefore supply could be shifted to the right, and vice versa. Okay. For example, if there's a famine, I hope not, that happened in the area, then it might make some of the farmers quit their production to produce in the area, and supply could be shifted to that. Okay, excise tax subsidies have the same effects on the supply side, because if there are more excise tax being imposed on the supplier, then you're more discouraged to produce. Supply could shift to the left, and vice versa. If you have subsidies from the government to produce your farm or you produce, and basically yes, the answer is yes. You will produce more, supply could be shifted to the right. Now, expected prices is talking about future prices. What are we talking about future prices here? So let's just say your expected prices, so something you're going to produce in the future, we could talk about the same thing like if you see the Mac computer that we're talking about earlier. If the future prices are going to be higher, then actually you will try not to sell so many units now. You delay selling. So then if future price is going to be higher, supply could shift to the left for the current period. Because you might even take all this Mac computer you have off the shelf, and just leave it in the warehouse until next month. When the prices are higher, you start putting them out again to sell them. So in the current period, your supply of the Mac computer will actually shift to the left. You will on purpose hide them, put them away until at a later price you could sell them at a higher price. That's what some businessmen would do. I'm not saying everybody would do it, but that's what some would do. Okay, I think that's basically is it on the demand side of it. Now, there's one other concept that I feel like I need to cover, and that is the concept of equilibrium. So again, the key point about talking about this supply side is that the shift in supply curve is not the same as quantity supply. Okay, so next thing I want to talk about is the term equilibrium. Okay, equilibrium is a very important concept in economics. So remember a while ago, you only see the supply side by itself, or you see the demand side by itself. So now we're going to put the two together. So here we are, we got the demand curve that's downward sloping, we got the supply curve that's upward sloping, and where they intersect, the two lines intersect, I'm going to call it point A, and then point A, again, this is your price, this is your quantity. At price A right there, we denote it with P star. P star in economics, the star we usually use it to indicate equilibrium. So this will be your equilibrium price here. Okay, and then down here will be your equilibrium quantity. So there it is. And now you could truly call this a, so this would be your Q star. So now you could truly call this a market. That is buyer plus sellers. Or you could say consumers plus producers. Because before, remember, you do not see these two lines intersecting. I'm always presenting it from one side only. Here's the demand side from the perspective of buyers or consumer, and then here's the supply side from the viewpoint of producer or seller. So now I'm putting everything together. I say here's the market. The market is something that, well, we all know what the market is. Market consists of buyers and sellers. So there's now a sales that happen. So before, you didn't make a sale. You're just trying to make a sale. You say, okay, if the price is such and such, I will sell it at how many quantities? Or if the price is such and such as a buyer, I'll buy how many? But now this has actually happened. There's a market that takes place now. So for example, you're selling a textbook, you know, and you might say start off with $50. You say that's the lowest I'm willing to let go. But then your potential buyer comes along and say, well, the highest I'm willing to pay is 40. So the question here is there a sale going on? The answer is no, because he wants 40 and you want 50. So what's going to happen? So both of you would have to compromise a little bit, haggles a little bit, and then you might say, well, okay, I could sell it for $47. And then he say, okay, maybe I'm willing to pay 42. So at the end of all this process of haggling, the textbook might be sold at exactly $45. So then your $45 here will be your so-called equilibrium price. And you're selling and buying one textbook, or it could be three, you know, small number if you're small dealers. So that's basically what the term equilibrium is. And then I think, trying to look at it, we should also talk about surplus and the concept of surplus and shortages. Yeah, here it is. So now there's one other things I want to add on. At equilibrium, which is at this point here, everything is stable. The prices are stable, the quantities are stable. There's no tendency for the market to move away. See all these arrows I point towards, they all converge towards point A here. So the equilibrium, we say that your quantity demanded is the same as your quantity supply. Okay, what is the opposite of equilibrium? So some of you are thinking about the term equilibrium. What does it mean? Equilibrium means you are at, let me use some synonymous terms here. That means stability. Okay, and you might even use the word balance. Some of you might remember when you were young, you get on the seesaw. You know, if you get another person who is of the same weight as you sitting on the other end of the seesaw, what happened? Both of you are up in the air because you're all both are of the same weight. But if the other person is heavier than you, then you're up in the air, he's on the ground, and vice versa. So in other words, if both of you are up in the air, you know, you are balanced. You're in equilibrium because there's no tendency for things to change until someone come along and rescue you. Okay, from the seesaw, that's what I mean. Okay, so so the opposite of equilibrium is disequilibrium. You probably do not see this term in your textbook. That means your quantity demanded is not equal to your quantity supply. And there are two situations. One is known as surplus. Surplus means your quantity supply is greater than your quantity demanded. Number two is known as shortages. Okay, in the case of shortages, your quantity supply is less than quantity demanded. Okay, how do we indicate them? So what happens is surplus means you have too much to go around and you don't have enough people wants your good. So this will be the case where if you draw a line up here, let's say this is $50. At $50, the quantity supply, the QS here will be, well, let me put it down there. And let's say originally this number is 10 here. So this might be 15. So your quantity supply will be at 15, and your equilibrium quantity is 10, but your demand curve, this is how you look at it. You draw a line across at $50. Your quantity supply is 15, but your quantity demanded is only 5. So what happened? You got 15 copies of textbook, but only 5 people want it. Because it's the number of students we have, but just like, then you have a surplus here. So this distance between this line between the 2 points here is your surplus. So in this case, it's 15 minus 5, which is 10. So you have 10 units of surplus textbook out there. So that's how you present your surplus, because your quantity supply is greater than quantity demand at $50 when you draw a line across. So another example would be the opposite of it, where you have shortages. Shortages will be right here. If you draw a line across, and let's just say this is now, let's say it's $30. At $30, it's below equilibrium price. You think people are happy to buy more? Yes, absolutely. So then it might say, oh, I'm happy to buy 18 units. But however, there's only 6 copy that's going around. So quantity supply is at 6, but then the quantity demanded is at, excuse me, yeah, this is the quantity demanded. Again, you look at it from where the $30, where the line touches the demand curve and the supply. Where it touches demand curve is quantity demanded. So now people want 18 units of the book, but guess what? You only have 6 units quantity supply of books to go around. So you have shortages. Okay, so that's how you present it on the graph here. So this is your QD here. The red one is a QD. I'm trying to use a different color for different scenarios so you could see a little bit clearer here. Yeah, that's for your original QD here. So anyway, so that's how you present it. So in other words, anytime that you have this equilibrium is when you have a surplus, you have or you have shortages. Okay, that's pretty much cover what's in this chapter. And then, yep. And then there's some definition about what is capitalism, communism, and socialism. So I think you could just kind of like read this in the book to see the difference here. I think most of us understand what's the difference between the capitalist market and the communisms. Basically, capitalist is market is a free market. You're free to buy and sell, but communist market is, is being controlled by the government to some extent, the buying and selling and the distribution. And it also mentioned socialist market, and that's the one that they tend to use tax. They tend to use taxation to tax people to kind of like distribute the income among their population. So that's a difference. So thank you for listening. This is what I have for demand and supply. Please read the chapter so you're aware of so you can understand this a little bit better. Thank you.